All right, so get ready. We're going deep on a topic that people always seem to have really strong opinions on, jogging. We're going to break down the science, bust some myths, and figure out if jogging is the key to ultimate fitness or like a one-way ticket to knee replacements.
Yeah, and we hear so much about how good jogging is for your heart, but nobody ever seems to talk about the potential downsides,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to, how jogging actually affects your body, like the mechanics of it all.
Right, exactly. We're going beyond just the surface level today. And to help us do that, we've got Dr. Doug McGuff's book, Body by Science.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, he makes a pretty bold statement in there calling jogging a negative exercise. And I'm not saying we should all toss our running shoes just yet, but, it definitely got me thinking. So let's dig into it and see what we can learn.
Yeah, for sure. I think a good starting point would be to really understand how jogging, especially on hard surfaces, affects our joints.
Yeah.
Every time your foot hits the ground, that impact, it sends a force through your body. And it's kind of like a shockwave with every stride.
Oh, okay. So instead of picturing my joints like, I don't know, Rice Krispies or something, I should be thinking more like a jackhammer.
Well, maybe not that extreme. But yeah, you're getting the idea that repetitive stress, over time, it can lead to some specific issues like patellofemoral pain syndrome. You might know it as runner's knee. Basically, the cartilage under your kneecap wears down, and that causes pain and inflammation.
Ouch, that sounds not fun. So I'm guessing this is where that whole negative exercise idea starts to gain some traction. So like what can people do if they're worried about their joints, but they still want to get a good cardio workout in?
Oh, there are tons of low-impact exercises that are much easier on your joints. Swimming is awesome, cycling is great, and even just brisk walking, it can really get your heart rate up without all that pounding. It's all about finding something you actually enjoy so you'll stick with it.
Right. Variety is the spice of life. All right. So we talked about the potential downsides for our joints, but what about the heart? Jogging's supposed to be good for that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Jogging can boost your heart health in a lot of ways. It increases your stroke volume, which basically means your heart gets more efficient at pumping blood with each beat. And it improves your capillary density, so your body gets better at delivering oxygen to your muscles. But, and this is important, moderation is key here.
Oh. So like too much of a good thing can actually be bad for you.
Right, so think about like marathon runners who are constantly pushing themselves to the limit. Studies have shown that this level of intense training, especially over long periods of time, can actually cause what's called cardiac remodeling.
Cardiac remodeling.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary word, but basically it means the structure of the heart can actually change. Like you can get myocardial fibrosis, which is basically scarring of the heart tissue,
Ah.
and even ventricular enlargement, which means the chambers of the heart get bigger.
Wow. Okay, that's definitely something to think about. So it sounds like it's all about finding that sweet spot, right? Enough jogging to get the benefits, but not so much that we're putting ourselves at risk.
Exactly. It's about understanding your own body and finding that balance that works for you.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, I've always wondered about like the muscle building aspect of jogging. Can I get superhero biceps just by running a lot?
Well, not quite. You see, jogging mainly works your slow twitch muscle fibers. Those are the ones that are all about endurance. So think like long, lean muscles, like you see in marathon runners. It's not going to bulk you up the same way that, lifting weights would.
Ah, okay. So if someone wants to like get ripped, they're better off hitting the weights than hitting the pavement.
Well, it depends on their goals. Jogging will build some lean muscle for sure, especially in your legs and core. And that's a great base. But if you're really looking to gain a lot of muscle mass, what scientists call hypertrophy, then you definitely want to add some strength training to your routine.
Got it. So jogging plus strength training equals a balanced approach. Makes sense. But let's, I don't know, zoom out for a second and look at this from like an evolutionary perspective. Were humans really built for running miles and miles?
That's a question that anthropologists have been debating for a long time. There's the endurance running hypothesis that says our ancestors evolved to run long distances to chase down prey. But then there's also evidence that maybe we were better adapted for short bursts of speed, like sprinting to escape predators.
Hmm. So the jury's still out on whether marathons are really in our DNA. But what's important is listening to our own bodies, right? Jogging shouldn't feel like I'm forcing myself to do something I'm not meant to do.
Exactly. Pay attention to those cues your body is giving you. And remember, we don't have to outrun predators in our modern lives. We get to choose how we move our bodies.
Right. That's a good point. So we talked about the potential downsides for joints and the heart if you overdo it, but even casual joggers can get injured, right? Like shin splints are definitely a thing, right?
Oh, for sure. Even if you're not training for a marathon, injuries can happen. Plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, even stress fractures. And preventing these, it's all about treating your body like, I don't know, like a well-maintained machine.
Oh, okay. So like giving my body the same TLC I give a classic car,
Yeah.
right? Regular maintenance for optimal performance.
I like that analogy. Investing in proper footwear is key. Shoes that provide good support and cushioning. And paying attention to your running form is crucial too. Things like overstriding or landing too hard on your heels, those can put extra stress on your joints and increase your risk of getting hurt.
And I'm guessing gradually increasing mileage and intensity is important too.
Absolutely. Pushing yourself too hard too soon is asking for trouble. Your body needs time to adapt. Start slow. Build a solid foundation, and then you can gradually increase your distance and intensity over time.
Makes sense. So, okay, we've covered a lot here. The impact on joints, the evolutionary side of things, the importance of injury prevention. But let's circle back to that claim from Dr. McGuff, the one about jogging being a negative exercise. Is that really fair to say for, like, the average jogger?
Well, you have to remember that Dr. McGuff is probably basing his perspective on extreme cases, people who are really overtraining. He's looking at the potential downsides when jogging is done to excess without enough recovery. But for most people who enjoy a moderate jogging routine, the benefits are definitely going to outweigh any risks.
Okay, that's good to hear. I think this deep dive has given us all a lot to think about. We've explored the potential benefits and risks of jogging, talked about the importance of listening to our bodies, and even considered the evolutionary history of running.
Yeah, and I think one of the key takeaways here is that fitness isn't one size fits all. You know what I mean? What works for one person might not work for another. It's all about finding what feels right for you, what fits your lifestyle, and what helps you reach your own personal goals.
Exactly. And that's what we're all about here at the Deep Dive, giving you the knowledge to make informed choices about your own health and well-being.
Totally. It's about giving you the tools and information you need to navigate the world of fitness and make decisions that work for you.
All right, so on that note, we're going to wrap up part 1 of our jogging deep dive.
Welcome back. So where we left off, we were talking about all the physical stuff, the mechanics of jogging and potential risks. Now, I think it'd be interesting to shift gears a bit and talk about like the mental and emotional side of things.
Yeah, definitely. I've always been curious about that whole runner's high thing that people talk about. Is that a real thing or just like a myth made up by runners?
Oh, it's definitely real.
Yeah.
When we do sustained aerobic exercise, like jogging, our brains release all these endorphins. Those are like those feel-good chemicals, and that can lead to like a feeling of euphoria, a sense of reduced anxiety, even pain relief.
Whoa, so it's like our brains are rewarding us for putting in the work.
Yeah, in a way. And it's not just like a temporary mood boost either. Over time, regular jogging can actually change the structure of the brain, especially in the hippocampus.
The hippocampus, what's that?
That's the part of the brain that's really important for memory and learning.
Wow. Okay, so not only can jogging help us feel better right now, but it can actually have long-term benefits for our brains. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And there's more and more evidence that aerobic exercise like jogging can be a really powerful tool for managing things like stress and anxiety, even depression. It's like having a natural antidepressant.
I like the sound of that. But I know that not everyone experiences that, like blissful runner's high, right? Some people find jogging, I don't know, kind of boring, or they have trouble staying motivated. Any tips for those of us who haven't quite fallen in love with running yet?
I would say like finding what motivates you is key. Some people really love exploring new trails. Some like to listen to their favorite podcasts while they run, or maybe join a running group for that, social connection and a little bit of accountability. It's really all about experimenting and seeing what works for you.
Oh, yeah, I like that. Turning jogging into like a social activity, so you're getting a double dose of benefits, exercise, and some quality time with friends.
Exactly. And remember, jogging doesn't have to be this solo thing. Sharing the experience with others can definitely make it more enjoyable and help you stick with it.
Okay, so we talked about the physical benefits, the mental benefits, but what about sleep? Does jogging help us get a good night's rest?
Jogging can definitely play a role in improving sleep quality. When you exercise regularly, it helps to regulate your circadian rhythm.
Circadian what now?
It's basically your body's natural sleep-wake cycle.
Yeah.
And that can lead to like more restful sleep that actually makes you feel refreshed.
So if I'm having trouble sleeping, maybe I should try a jog instead of counting sheep.
It's worth trying, but timing is important. You don't want to jog too close to bedtime because, that endorphin rush might make it harder to fall asleep at first. Just give yourself a few hours to wind down before hitting the hay.
So it's all about balance, right? Like with most things in life. We want to push ourselves, but also respect our body's need for rest.
Exactly. And it's also really important to remember that everybody is different, right? What works for one person might not work for another. You really have to pay attention to how your body responds to jogging and adjust your routine accordingly.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've been talking about a lot of the positives, but I mean, let's be real. Jogging isn't always sunshine and rainbows, right? Are there any downsides or risks that we need to be aware of?
Oh, definitely. We talked about the importance of proper form and footwear earlier, and that's really important when it comes to preventing injuries. Another thing that people struggle with is overexertion. Pushing yourself too hard too soon, that can lead to injuries, burnout, and it can even make you start to dread jogging.
It's like that classic too much of a good thing scenario, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
It's all about listening to your body, recognizing those early warning signs of like fatigue or pain, and respecting your limits.
It's like they say, slow and steady wins the race, right? It's not about going all out right away. It's about building a routine that you can stick with, something that's sustainable over time.
Totally. And building that sustainable routine, it requires rest days. Rest is just as important as exercise. It gives your body time to repair and rebuild itself so you can come back stronger and more resilient for your next run.
Rest, the unsung hero of fitness. Sometimes the best thing we can do is just give ourselves a break.
I couldn't agree more. Now let's switch gears again. I think it's important to talk about something that a lot of people don't really consider, the environmental impact of jogging.
Oh, okay, interesting. You mean like the carbon footprint of running shoes or, I don't know, the impact of all those miles on paved surfaces?
Yeah, those are definitely things to think about. But even just choosing where you jog can make a difference. Running on trails or in parks instead of like busy city streets can reduce your exposure to air pollution,
Mhm.
and it usually just makes for a more peaceful and enjoyable experience.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I love the idea of getting some exercise while also connecting with nature. It's like a double dose of good vibes. And what about like the gear? Are there more sustainable options out there these days?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A lot of brands are starting to prioritize eco-friendly materials and ethical manufacturing processes. So you can look for shoes made with recycled materials, for example, or, companies that are really transparent about their environmental practices.
It's pretty amazing how even those small choices can make a difference, right? Okay, so we've talked about the mental benefits, the environmental impact. Oh, what about the social side of jogging?
Oh, yeah, jogging can be a very social activity, actually.
Yeah.
Joining running groups, participating in races, even just talking about your runs with your friends and family, it can create a real sense of community and connection.
I love that sense of camaraderie, It's like everyone's in it together, supporting each other.
But it's also important to, be aware of the potential downsides of the social aspect. Comparison can be a real trap. It's so easy to start comparing yourself to other runners, feeling like you're not as fast or as far along as you should be.
Ugh, yeah, I know that feeling. Especially with social media these days, it's so easy to get caught up in that comparison game.
Right. It's so important to remember that everyone's on their own journey. Focus on your own progress, celebrate your own achievements, and don't let what other people are doing take away from your own sense of accomplishment.
I love that. Comparison really is the thief of joy. Okay, so at the end of the day, jogging is really about personal growth,
Right.
right?
It's not a competition, it's a journey. A journey of self-discovery and, even empowerment.
I love that. Jogging as a path to self-discovery and empowerment. That's a really cool way to think about it.
It is. And on that note, I think it's time for us to move on to the final part of our jogging deep dive. We've explored the science, the benefits, the risks, the social aspects. Now it's time to bring it all together and see what we can learn from everything we've discussed.
All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into jogging. We've been on quite a journey, haven't we?
We have. We've really covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Everything from the actual mechanics of running and how to avoid injuries to the mental and emotional benefits. And we even talked about the environmental impact.
We did. We really tried to look at jogging from all sides. But before we wrap up, I think there's one more thing we should address. Remember at the beginning when we talked about Dr. McGuff's book, Body by Science, and how he made that, well, pretty bold statement, calling jogging a negative exercise.
Yeah, I remember.
Well, I'm sure some of our listeners, especially those who love jogging, are probably wondering how that statement fits into everything else we've talked about.
Right, that's a good point. And I think it's worth going back to that claim now that we have, a more complete understanding of all the different aspects of jogging. Remember, Dr. McGuff is probably looking at things from the perspective of someone who's training at a really high level. Elite athletes or people who are pushing their bodies to the absolute limit, often without enough recovery.
So you're saying his conclusions might not really apply to the average person who goes for a jog a few times a week?
Exactly. For most people, the benefits of moderate jogging are going to far outweigh any potential risks. It's all about finding that sweet spot, right? That balance between challenging yourself and giving your body the rest it needs.
That makes a lot of sense. It seems like the big takeaway here, and really something that's come up throughout this whole deep dive, is that fitness is personal. What works for one person might not work for another.
Totally. It's not about following the latest trends or pushing yourself harder than you need to. Sometimes that can actually do more harm than good.
Right. It's about finding what feels good for you, what fits into your lifestyle, and helps you reach your goals. It's not about trying to fit into some kind of mold.
Exactly. It's about tuning into your own body, understanding how it works, what it needs, and finding a routine that's sustainable for you, something that makes you feel good.
And that actually brings up another interesting point. Thinking about jogging, not just as exercise, but as something that can actually be, well, enjoyable, like something that brings you joy.
Oh yeah, for sure. When you find activities that you actually like doing, you're way more likely to stick with them. And that's where you really start to see those long-term benefits, both physically and mentally. So yeah, finding that joy is super important.
It is. And speaking of those long-term benefits, let's zoom out for a minute. Where does jogging fit into the big picture of, like, a healthy lifestyle?
Well, it's definitely one piece of the puzzle, right?
Hmm.
But I think it's important to remember that it's just one piece. It's not the whole picture. A healthy lifestyle is also about nutrition, sleep, managing stress, having social connections. It's about more than just like how many miles you can run or how fast you can go.
I like that. It's about taking care of yourself as a whole person.
Exactly. Jogging can be a great way to improve your physical and mental well-being,
Hmm.
but it works best when it's part of a balanced lifestyle.
That's such a great point. It's all connected, isn't it? All right, well, I think that about wraps up our jogging deep dive. We've really explored so many different facets of this topic. It's been a really interesting journey.
It has. We've looked at the science, the benefits, the risks, and hopefully we've given you the information you need to make your own decisions about jogging. What works for you, what doesn't.
That's what it's all about, right? Knowledge is power.
For sure. So whether you're a seasoned runner or just starting out, remember to approach jogging with curiosity, with respect for your body, and most importantly, with joy. Because, jogging might be more than just exercise. It could be a way to learn more about yourself, or a way to feel more empowered, or even a path to a more connected and fulfilling life. Who knows? So until next time, happy jogging.